I really feel like the Jeopardy theme song being like done in like a 4-part choral harmony should be like the background noise
Oh,
for
that
that
would be
little girl.
nice.
I need a better something for music for background. At least that is my that is the conclusion I've come to. I've found like various little countdowns to get into this. I don't like any of them so far. Anyways, hello everyone. Welcome to we're having church every day this week, guys. I think we all need a spirit. We're having some science church every day this week. We need a spiritual cleansing of the soul because it's going to be a rough week. Welcome to church, my good friend, Dr. Abby Hafer. Welcome in here, Abby. I'm so glad to have you. How are you handling the apocalypse so far?
Oh, depends upon which part you talk about. I mean, I spend a lot of time outdoors. I spend a lot of time indoors. I don't see people for the usual reasons, all of that stuff. We're kind of lucky where I am because the weather's been pretty good and I can go out and ride my bicycle a lot. And that's very good for the spirit as well as for the body. So,
oh yeah, and you're in the Boston, greater Boston area?
I'm in the greater Boston area. Yeah.
I look at that and go, the weather's been good. What are you talking about? It's cold there. But of course, I'm a wuss when it comes to temperature. It's like it's finally dropped slightly below 70 in the California area, and here I am under a giant blanket because I can't handle shit. It's not. No, it's like I moved away from New England partially because I'm like, I can't handle another 60 years of this. It's not happening. And then I realized that, well, COVID's here and it might take away my choice on if I'm going to get 60 years. I'm sorry, that's horribly grim. I'm starting off on death early. So, anywho, I met you at a conference we were both speaking at, and you gave a really amazing talk on gender variation and on sexual variations within the animal kingdom, and it really helped me understand that there were that things like gender fluidity and gender non-binary things like that existed throughout the animal kingdom. And I think these are things that some people who are like, all right, I'm on board with X, Y, and Z. I'm on board with these things within the LGBTQIA. I'm on board with some things. I don't understand this. And these are things that, like, I think if they saw that these are things that happen normally within the animal kingdom, they'd go, oh, this can happen to humans too. And that is why your talk is so valuable. Could you talk a little bit about how, like, this is something that came into your repertoire on the side of being a biology professor?
Okay. I am trained in zoology. I actually have a doctorate from Oxford in zoology. And so the reason I tend to come up with new talks is when I realize that there is something political going on where it's not just that I know how to address it, but it's like it has been in my head for years how to address it. And it's like, why doesn't everybody else know this stuff? And the answer is because they didn't go to biology school the way that I did. So they can't be expected to know it. But the point I'm making is that the stuff I talk about is common knowledge with biologists. So it's not something that is unusual or is secret or is cutting edge even. Most of these things have been known for decades and sometimes for hundreds of years. So this is where I'm coming from. So it was actually right after the Pulse nightclub shooting when I just had one of those moments and I thought, I already know enough to debunk this stuff. Why am I not talking about it?
That's wonderful.
So I mean, go ahead.
Like, the triggering event isn't wonderful, but it's wonderful that you saw that and said, let me find a way to do something good out of, put all these horrible emotions that are going through my head and find something good that can be done out of this.
Well, and it's the kind of thing where a lot of these thoughts had been sort of, banging around in my head for quite some time. And so, yes, it was a triggering event where it was suddenly like, I know how to debunk this. I've known it for years. Let's just go ahead and do it and have some fun with it.
And the talk is wildly amusing. Like, on top of being so scientific and so factual, it's like it had me laughing my till I was aching. So it was I think it was my favorite talk at that conference.
Oh, thank you. Please tell the conference organizers that.
And just for the record, Lawrence Krauss was also speaking at that conference, and you were my favorite talk.
Oh,
so
thank you.
Just throwing it out there for like it's that is my plug for how much I love what you did. Anyways, carrying on.
Thanks. Okay, so I mean, what I did basically was that I should go back and explain that what the objection that many people have to LGBTQ plus issues all across the board is that people will say, but it's unnatural. And that's my entry point. Yeah. Yeah, phones aren't natural either. Yep. Exactly. So, but that's where I dive in, is I say, you want to know about nature? Ask a biologist.
You're like, you stepped into my turf, sir.
Right, exactly. So as I said, that is where I dive in. And so I start off with, let's take kind of, baby steps into the shallow end, talking about, different gender roles. And, some people might say, well, it's just more natural that, women want to look after babies or this kind of thing. And so, then I will go into animals like emus, where it is in fact the males that sit on the eggs, and after the eggs hatch, they raise the chicks, and that's their full-time job, is being the child rearer, or the chick rearer.
Wow.
And nurturer.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So as I said, male emus are the nurturers of the emu world. And so, that's just kind of one example. And you think of these, sort of great big gawky birds, but as I said, it's the guys who are the soft touch there. And then you can also go into, the L and the G part of things. And you can talk, for instance, about, there's the famous gay penguins, for instance.
Oh, I have to interrupt, because interrupting is a thing I'm really good at, but also because I was just on a podcast yesterday that the thing that they do on the podcast was discuss interesting headlines that were just in the news. And the headline we were discussing was I believe a pair of gay penguins was trying to steal an egg from a pair of lesbian penguins at this zoo. So not only are there gay penguins, they're trying really hard to raise babies, and apparently adoption is a hard thing for gays, even in the penguin world. So,
that's hilarious. I love it.
Yeah, that's only interruption. Carry on, please.
That's all right. But there are numerous instances of gay relationships in the animal kingdom. The one that I picked for the talk that you saw was actually gay rams, because rams are kind of the symbol of male horniness, practically. And rams are male sheep, and I forget the exact percentage. I'm going to say 8% of all male sheep form exclusively male pair bonds and ignore all females.
They're proud. They're proud of their masculinity, and they're proud of their male partners. Very happy for them.
Right, exactly. And then likely there are lesbian albatrosses that get together and raise chicks together. I mean, I think they probably have to be fertilized, but nonetheless, after that, they set up housekeeping with female albatrosses. There are threesomes, skuas, that are these sort of almost vicious birds. Very often will form threesomes for raising chicks.
Wow. So thruples, as like so years ago, there was a huge kind of headline about this lesbian thruple, and I was friends with them. Like, they were on there was a huge thing on Colbert making jokes at them. They almost got a reality show because they had a lesbian thruple wedding, and people were like, "This is crazy." Apparently happens in the animal kingdom too.
Right. Now, I don't know with the skuas if it's three of the same sex, or I think they can be mixed, basically, but definitely thruples in the skua world. Then there are quite a number of species that can basically they don't need males, is what I'm getting at here. They can just self-reproduce. Hi, buddy. They can
But it says hello.
they can reproduce without any males whatsoever. This is
Ooh.
at this point well known in sharks. Not all sharks, but lots of sharks. They can reproduce sexually, but they don't have to. So, there have been sharks in aquariums that have lived in aquariums for years that suddenly gave birth. And yeah, sharks give birth. They're weird, but anyway, they give birth. That suddenly gave birth. And
everything I thought I knew was wrong. You were right. Oh, man.
And so, as I said, it is clear that they can just do parthenogenesis, as it is technically known.
Jesus.
And there is a wonderful new thing that I don't think I brought up at the talk. Have you heard about the brand new? This is the crossover thing between all of the stuff that I do on explaining to people why they should accept evolution and have it taught in schools and not bother with creationism. This is the crossover between evolution and my gender binary talks that I give.
Quick interruption. Mom has entered the chat. Carry on.
There is a brand newly evolved all-female species of crustacean that is kind of taking over the world.
How does I need more information, because I recently learned and then promptly forgot the word for basically crabification, for the process of various species through convergent evolution turning into crabs, and I forgot the word. There are hold on a second.
Convergent evolution. Do you mean?
I think wasn't that what I said? I could be wrong. I thought I said convergent evolution.
You may have.
Yeah. Hold on a second. Let's see. Turning into a crab. I love that.
Crabification. Okay, can't help you with that, but
it's carcinization.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an example of a convergent evolution in which a crustacean evolves into a crab-like form from a non-crab-like form. That was a thing I recently learned was a thing, but there are a bunch of articles on why does evolution keep turning different species into crabs.
Oh, I didn't know. That sounds like fun. If you can send me the link, I'd be curious.
Oh, definitely. I'll grab that and send it right over to you now. But yeah, that was I was somehow I got to the age of 37 and you got to likewise the age of 37 without knowing this was a thing, and we're in science.
I didn't know. I mean, I've certainly heard of plenty of convergent evolution, but I didn't know about converging on crabs.
Yeah, that was just that was crazy to me. But anyways, slight aside, carry on.
But in this case, it is actually more lobster-like. It's a crayfish or a crawfish, depending upon where you grew up. But in any case, so this crayfish, I'll call it the parent species for lack of a better term, but the sort of ancestral species is a crayfish that is common to the North American Southeast, where you would kind of expect to find crayfish. But it turns out that particular southeastern species is a popular aquarium pet in some places, including in Europe, including in Germany. And so people had these crayfish in their aquaria. And then we're not quite sure exactly how it happened, but basically, the way it always happens is that a few mutations take place. And a few mutations took place such that the new species that popped off of the old ancestral species kept going, but this new species popped off, as they sometimes do. And it was considerably larger, 25 to 50% larger than the ancestral species, and it's all female. So they just breed, they clone, basically. So they just keep cloning themselves. They lay fertile eggs, and you get lots of new baby crayfish. And you can see how this would be a problem for aquaria.
Yeah.
because suddenly you've got an aquarium full of new crayfish that you did not ask
They
for.
just keep, they're tribbles. They're
They
crayfish
they're
tribbles.
like tribbles. Yes,
Oh my
yes, they're sort of
God.
crunchy tribbles in many ways. They just keep breeding.
Wow. Just crunchy little, it's like, how do you eat your tribbles with butter? Like, this is,
Right.
wow. Oh my God. That's like amazing and horrifying. And I just, whew, wow. It's someone in the question in the in over in chat just asked, what's the advantage of a barbed penis? I feel there's a question that I don't know if you've ever explored this, but there are species with barbed penises indeed, correct?
This is my understanding. Yes.
It,
Um,
like it helps it latch in when when they're species that resist. I have no idea. Like, this is a horrifying thing to think about, and I don't want to. But this is something that some biologist out there has to think about, and it's not me.
right. Well, there are a lot of the barbed penis could have a bunch of different things going on. Now, I should say, first of all, that not all things that evolve are necessarily useful or good.
True.
A lot of things that evolve are just simply there because, as I so often say, it's not detrimental enough to kill us before giving birth too much of the time.
Yep. And
You know, evolution has kind of a low bar for passing.
Lots of
But
things are vestigial. Lots of things evolved poorly.
right, or they're just kind of there and they're not bad enough, as I said, to actually be actively selected against. Supposing there is an advantage sometimes to a barbed penis, it might just, well, we can say lots of things about penises, and the
Oh, please go on.
the male human penis would appear to have been evolved in part to try and vacuum out somebody else's sperm. It kind of has that plunger on the end anyway. But getting back to barbed penises, that could also be a way of staying in, basically, if there are struggles. Have you ever looked, or when I say looked at, I mean studied or read about duck penises?
I have, and I'm
There we go.
terrified. Like, duck penises, like they are like there's something yeah, it is hard to render me speechless, and I don't have words for the terror I have thinking about, like, not that I think about duck sex all that much, but whenever a question about duck sex comes up, I'm like, you could, like, they could literally rip apart their little duck partner trying to get like, if it's not the right anyways, there's my reaction to duck penises. I'm clearly 12. So this is why I don't have a real job.
And I'm more like 4, but anyway, right.
Oh, you're like, I made a whole thing out of penises for my job.
Right. But before we carry on with penises, I am going to go back to this crayfish, however, because
carry on with penises. I like that.
Because with these crayfish that are just, sort of self-replicating, of course, they started taking up a lot of room in their owners' aquaria. So what did the owners do? Well, sometimes they sold them to other aquaria. But come on, what do people do when they get tired of their goldfish?
They dump them out into the toilet, and then sometimes those goldfish die, but sometimes they go out to the river and become river goldfish.
Or they get dumped in the local pond, or whatever the case may be. And so at this point, this all-female, brand new species of crayfish is like taking over ponds all over the world. They're in Australia. They're in all kinds of places because with an all-female species, they just keep breeding.
Oh man, they're the El Chapo's hippos of crayfish.
Okay, you lost me on that one.
I think it was El Chapo. It was either him or another drug lord in South America. So he brought hippos over as pets, and they are they are an invasive species. And after his compound was left, a lot of other things were taken by the government and dismantled and whatnot. The hippos just kind of are running wild now. I believe it was I believe it was El Chapo. But
Like
anyways,
like
yeah,
like the pythons in Florida, right?
yeah, it's like
Right.
it's not a new species that was created, but yeah, it was a new species introduced. But that is
That was an introduced species, yes.
yeah.
Well, in this case with the crayfish, they introduced themselves to everybody.
Oh my
Um,
triples. Crayfish triples. I hope whoever has named this species, like I know they have. Oh, someone corrected me. It was Escobar. So
oh, okay.
yeah, Escobar's. Uh, yeah, that was. Oh, someone said Chapo. Okay, we're going back and forth. A drug
Mm.
lord. There we go. Had hippos.
Some drug lord
So,
or other,
yeah,
right.
I just hope whoever's named these crawfish just named them like if it's in the name, it's Tribilicus or something. Like it needs
It
to.
should be. It
It's
should be,
if
but
they've named it something else, like someone needs to go to like where I feel like there has whoever's in charge of naming new animals. Like we have to go back. You made a mistake. It's Tribilicus.
it's actually crunchy tribble or something. Yes, right, right,
Crunchilicus Tribilicus. I'll
right,
take it. I'll
right.
take it. Anywho, back to what you were saying.
So, but I'm going to carry on with other fun facts to know and tell. Um, there was an actual photograph taken by people who study whales. I forget which whale it was. Might have been a right whale, but I don't remember. And in any case, where there was a photograph taken of whales having a three-way in the water. I'm not joking. There was a female whale photographed with two male penises in her at once. The secret here is that male whales have very, very long, very bendy penises, is about what it comes down to.
I gotta clap that shit out. Just you go, girl. You get what you want. You get your dreams. No one's gonna judge you. Whew.
Right.
I just damn someone just I have to three whale. Just well done. Well done. Just wow. It's no here's a good question. Do whales have sex for pleasure? I understood I understand some species do. Is that a mating technique, or is it a way to get your rocks off in the ocean, or is this what do we know?
Actually, I think we do kind of sort of know that, or at least let's just say there has been, as I recall it, and this is where I'm kind of scraping my memory rather than able to sort of give you a good paper to read. But I seem to recall sort of like what was clearly genital play among dolphins. And of course, captive dolphins, there's lots of them and people study them and everything. So they would be, a fairly easy one to observe. And as I said, I think that I have seen articles about dolphins engaging what was clearly play, having to do with sex.
Nice. I read somewhere ages ago that the only species that we know of for sure that have sex for pleasure are cats and dolphins, and I don't know if that's true or not. But it's that thing where I know I have that repository of information that I learned before I was skepticing, and I don't know which things are true or not. And I had a really dirty question pop to mind. If a whale's having a threesome and they're getting a blowjob, does the penis for the blowjob go into the mouth or the blowhole?
Well, the blowhole is only for breathing, so I really don't think that it would do that much, really.
But while it's breathing in, is there suction? I mean, I don't know.
That's true.
Maybe they like just the tip thing. I don't know how whales work this stuff. Maybe look, they were having a threesome. They got to be into some weird shit. So I don't look, whatever they're into, I don't want to shame them. So anywho, let's see. Back to sex in the animal kingdom. And back off of my horrible jokes.
All right. Well, now let's see. And sometimes what people will then say is, well, that's all very well, but what about primates? We're related to primates. We're not related to all those other things. Well, we are, but not as closely. And Well, I will start just by saying that some brave scientists, in fact, scientists who I know, actually made charts. And it was of mating style, like monogamy, or females having extra male partners or males having extra female partners. And they tried to see if there was any relationship between all those different mating strategies and ball size. Yes, somebody actually made a chart of this.
Just that, so I want to have been in the room where they were.
I was
where they were proposing this to the department head.
No.
Look,
actually,
I need a grant. I need a grant so I can fondle a gorilla's ball. I get it. That's not what. But like somehow, like I want to hear the conversation that happened to get the research money for this. Like I feel it could have been.
And funny. I see somebody in chat saying we're not related to primates. We are primates. That is true.
That is.
But we are more closely related to other primates than we are to other animals.
Indeed.
But anyway, so. Well, if you want to know about the room I was in, what they did, what they actually did was, this is something that, anatomists have worked on over the years, is that basically anatomists pretty much just measure everything. And so if you look in the right places, you can actually find out what, the general body weight is for, a type specimen of a given animal, and then what the ball weight is of that animal, and so on. And you do the math and you find out the ratio. So that's the kind of stuff that was already in the literature if you looked hard enough. And these particular scientists, there was one in particular who was rather proud of the fact that he used other people's data. Well, you can when it's published.
Okay, yeah.
So the point is, but he did creative and interesting things with it. And so given that there was all this literature about, ball weights in various species and general purpose body weight in various different species, he did the math as to the ball weight to body weight ratio in a whole bunch of different primates. And then he charted that out against mating strategy. And it's the kind of thing
I wish I wasn't laughing, but I'm 12. Sorry.
I kept a straight face in that seminar. I want you to know.
You're a better person than me, though, Abby. This is how I know. All right. This is why I studied chemistry and not biology, because I'll never be a person who can't laugh at the word box. Okay. That's just who I am. So anywho.
But it gets better, because much as I'm sure he did not actually do this, at one point he was presenting this data, and he was showing the data for the human male of ball weight versus general purpose weight. And he said something to the effect of, well, I have been accused by so-and-so of using other people's data, and it's true. And John, he then points to the point on the chart for the human male, ball weight versus body weight ratio. He says, John, there you are.
Oh my God.
I did laugh at that one.
Nice. It's a good I like that for a comeback. Well done. Well done.
Anyway, so fun things in zoology grad school. See, you studied chemistry. I got to go to seminars about this. Anyway.
You don't get comebacks like that in chem. I'm sorry. I'm lightheaded now. I don't know if I'm lightheaded because the edible's kicking in, or I'm just kidding. I gave up doing edibles before the live stream after the last time it kicked in a little early. So it was bad decision. But anyway, wow, that was. There you are. Anyway, carrying on.
Yes. So it turned out that although there were some pretty obvious things that that would appear to kind of where there was a correlation. It basically, it didn't work out. There wasn't really much of a correlation. There was a little bit of a correlation where there was somewhat lower ball weight among the monogamous species, but you couldn't say a whole lot else about it. But it was a good thing to try. But what it did put together on one very nice, easy to read chart was, as I said, that some primates are monogamous. Some primates, there will be one male that has multiple females. There will be other primates where there's a female who has multiple males. All of those things are known. But then it turns out that there are also, lesbian and gay and bi relationships in the primate world. Bonobos are famous for this. If you ever want some fun reading, go ahead and just read about, don't even bother with bonobo sex, just read about bonobo behavior, because bonobos sort of have sex for really almost any reason at all. It's kind of a social glue. So they just kind of use it for everything. It's like if you need to shake hands, if you need to make up, if you're feeling bad for somebody, if you want some comfort, whatever it is, they have sex.
Nice.
And, lesbian, gay, bi, whatever, they do it all.
It's, I feel Gen Z has taken a lesson from this. It's like, look, it doesn't matter what gender, just have sex. It works. At least
it's right.
Just have sex. Just have sex. And I think that is a beautiful thing. So we're learning as we go.
We are learning as we go. Yes. And, all right. The transgenderism in the animal kingdom.
This is what we need to talk about. This is the thing that's like, I want, like, where are we? All right. We're about a half an hour into this. I want to take this and like clip this out later and be like, let's have people learn from this.
Right. Well, I mean, first of all, we need to talk about whether we're talking about gender presentation or whether we're talking about actual sex change. And the answer is you see both.
Yeah.
In the animal world. So in terms of gender presentation, that's actually a role for what we call in the profession sneaky fuckers.
Nice.
So for instance, there are some fish where there will be a bunch of females, a harem basically, and the bigger males that look different will then guard the harem. But then there will be small males that mimic the look of females and swim right by the guardian male and have sex with the females in the harem. And, and presumably get away with it. Presumably the larger male fish don't cotton on too much of the time. So as I said, that's a case of gender presentation being different. But then in terms of actual sex change, this happens frequently among fish. And you may recall from the talk, I kind of piled it on a bit there as to the various different ways that it goes.
I was amazed at the number of ways that this happens, the number of species this happens in. Like that, I think it would be hard for someone to hear the list and not go, okay, I guess this can happen in humans too. I was wrong. Like, and it was just such an, like, it's compelling to say the least.
Well, and the point is it's natural. It happens in the natural world.
Yeah.
And this, by the way, is one of the reasons why some of the writing that I'm doing now is actually on the legal theory known as natural law. So anyway, I'm having fun with that now. But there are the group of fish called wrasses are one example. There are lots of wrasses, and they kind of go every which way. So, if you just sort of want a quick group to look up, they would be the one to start with. But basically, among various different species of fish, you can have species that start out female and then at some point in their lives transition over to being male. That can happen. There's one particular type of schooling fish where this is done. And what it comes out to is that the schools have one male who does the breeding. And when the old male dies, one of the several of the larger females sort of start transitioning. And eventually one winds up becoming the new male.
Wow. That I'm just like, does their anatomy does everything changes when they start? Wow.
They just change. That's right.
That is so cool.
And then there will be other species that go the other way, where males will change to females. And there are some, most of them, it'll sort of be a one-way transition, but not always. And so there are some species where it's actually more of, I won't even call it an evolutionary strategy, but more of sort of an interaction with the environment, combined with evolutionary strategy, which is often the way things work in behavior, where essentially there will be a very small harem of 2 or 3 females and 1 male. And if the male gets too greedy and starts adding too many females to the harem, one of those females will change sex and become a male and take away some of those females and start his own harem. But on the other hand, then
I've seen these things happen in poly circles in the human world too.
Right. But then let us say that this new male, who was recently female, gets challenged by an older, larger male. Then that new male will go back to being female. Essentially, because that way you get to keep breeding. Basically being male can mean more representation in the next generation, but only if you get to breed, whereas females nearly always get to breed if they want to. So as a result, this is just kind of a cool little evolutionary strategy where it's like, be female if that works for you, be male if that works for you. Whatever it is that works, just go ahead and do that. So there's that as well. I think those are called dwarf hawkfish. And as I said, so they're the ones that they just transition whatever seems to work best at the time. Now let's see, there's other fun things like this. There is also, Tetrahymena thermophila.
That's a gazoon. Let's
yes,
say it one more time. Tetrahymena
thermophila.
Tetrahymena thermophila. Did I get it?
You did, yes.
Cool. Tetrahymena thermophila. Okay, I got it.
And that is a single-celled organism that has 7, count them, 7 sexes.
7.
7, yes.
And I mean, I've heard the argument that humans have many different genders, because when you go through the different ways that XX and Y, or X and Y can kind of sort out, and when you add in Turner syndrome and you add in a lot of different things, you can sort those out as different genders. So I'd like to hear explain how it can have 7 different genders. I need to hear this because that's amazing.
Okay, no, 7 different sexes. Actual
breeding
sexes.
I apologize. I'm bad at mixing up the term sex and gender. I apologize. So,
okay. So anyway, this is kind of hard to explain. But kind of like in polycircles, you have these 7 different, let's call them mating types.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Jesus.
So if you are in mating type 1, you can mate with all the other mating types 2 through 7. If you are in mating type 2, you can mate with mating type 1 or 3 through 7. If you're mating type 3, you can do all the others, and you get the idea. So it's kind of like this great big round robin. You can have sex with any group except your own, more or less.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yes, and the way that it works, it has to do. Remember, these are single-celled organisms, and the way they manage this is by basically coming up with a breeding nucleus. They have kind of the regular cellular nucleus, which has paired chromosomes and the usual things that you find in nuclei. But then they basically will pop off a little breeding nucleus, which is there specifically for breeding, and then they will more or less, and it has half the usual number of chromosomes, and so then they will then just sidle up to another individual in some other mating group, and combine the two nucleuses, and then they or swap them is actually what they do. They make two breeding nucleuses, they exchange nucleuses basically, and so they do sexual reproduction. But as I said, they have lots of choices.
So one of the comments asks if you're the new Dr. Ruth. I think she's better than Dr. Ruth. She can explain sex from every freaking species on the planet. I'm just saying. I find her voice just as calming. I enjoy that. So anyway, you were saying.
So anyway, as I said, these little single-celled creatures, as I said, manage to have sexual reproduction, as I said, with 7 different sexes, which it was pointed out to me, it's like, do the math. If you are looking to do sexual reproduction, you actually have a much better chance of breeding this way, because let's say you want to reproduce. If you are a human male, you only have a 50% chance. If you bump into someone on the street, you only have a 50% chance that they are going to be of a type that can breed with you. Same thing if you're a human female. There's only 50% of the people out there are men, and only 50% of them are women. So if we randomly meet somebody, we only have a 50% chance that we could potentially breed with them. But when there are 7 different sexes, your chances of just running into somebody you could breed with goes up to 85%.
Oh man. I'd never thought of it that way. That's biological advantage to Tetra-Gesundheit. It's tetra. I will not remember that one. But I want to sit there and like commit it to memory by the end of the day. It's wow. That is evolutionary advantage. Those guys with 7 sexes.
Those guys with 7 sexes definitely maxed the course on that one.
I was about to say that sounds like a musical. 7 sexes for 7.
Oh yeah.
I was going to say it's 7 sexes for 7. You can't say brothers. You can't. We need different names.
We need different words. That's right.
When we need new names for genders, when you have 7 of them, and I was going to say that should lead us over to humans who have more than 2 genders. That's why it's fine to have multiple names for multiple genders. So I just throwing that out there for anyone who gets mad about having to use different pronouns because Dr. Jordan Peterson gave them ideas. Just wanted to chuck that out there. Can I ask a question regarding that, because that's one that got a lot of media attention a few years ago. One of the things that he kind of pushed quite a bit was that humans based their societal structures on the way that lobsters base their societal structures, because we both have serotonin in our brains and similar ways of releasing serotonin. And I'm like, that doesn't sound like a thing that happens, given how long ago we branched off from lobsters in our evolutionary in our evolutionary process. Like, it seems like we would be much more closely related to bonobos in how we structure our societies. It just seemed like such a stretch and in a way to to come to a conclusion that he'd already come to. Do you have any insights on that?
Well, so you're going to have to back up a little bit on this one. I mean,
Gotcha.
I have read a little bit about Jordan Peterson, but not all that much.
Gotcha.
But so what is this about lobsters and serotonin and people? And I'm confused.
Gotcha. I apologize for that. So he claimed that humans base our societal hierarchy on that of lobsters. Like, not that we purposefully went in and said, what's the structure of lobster society? That's what we're going to do. But because we have similar brains to them and the way that our brains are structured, we're so similar to them that we have similar hierarchies to the lobster. Based on, I believe his explanation was the way that we release serotonin. Based on thousands of years of evolution, we had the same hierarchy as the hierarchy of the lobster in our society. And that explains patriarchy, I think, was his whole
they can always find a way to explain patriarchy, and it usually has to do with aggression or something like that.
It's just
I've had some interesting discussions about that. So I can't tell you much about lobster society, but I can tell you that brain chemicals, it's remarkable how many brain chemicals we share with lots of other animals. And yes, getting back to your one point, we're really a lot more closely related to bonobos than we are to lobsters. I mean, let's just get that out there to begin with.
I have all of my feelers tucked back.
Right. But in terms of brain chemicals, I've been reading a really wonderful book recently called The Soul of an Octopus, which is all about octopuses, basically, and what interesting animals they are. And they're very smart, by the way. And they have personalities. And the writer of the book visited them in aquaria and got to know them as friends, and talks about how they change color and change the texture of their skin and do all kinds of interesting things. But one of the things that she gets at is that they have very similar brain chemicals to ours, despite the fact that they are mollusks. They are shell-less mollusks. And our most recent common ancestor was a very, very, very long time ago. So the point is, these brain chemicals are actually pretty remarkably consistent, or at least common, I should say, throughout the animal kingdom. It's weird, but there we are. So the fact that lobsters have serotonin and that we have serotonin is really no surprise whatsoever. And, by the way, mammals have serotonin, and by mammals, I mean other mammals besides us, have serotonin and all kinds of other things like that. So that does not seem to be much of an argument in favor of patriarchy.
He may do birds have serotonin in their brains?
I don't know. I would suspect that they do, but I'm not going to say yes because I'm not sure.
Let's pretend they do for a second. And he could have argued birds have serotonin in their brain. Women should be chewing up their food and spitting it into their young's mouth. Go the full Silverstone.
Some women do that.
I know. It's why we have blenders, people. We have blenders. We have food
well, no, I mean, I'm talking now about in much harsher environments like that. Basically, our hunter-gatherer ancestors probably did that because babies didn't have teeth.
Okay, but we
have blenders now.
Yes. But we have Alicia Silverstone, the actress, who did that. Like she does that. Or once upon a time when her baby was young, like it's like a daffy celebrity woo thing. Like, this is natural to do for your. Oh my God! Don't do that, parrots. Please don't. We live in strange times, don't we?
We do. Well, but I mean, it gets better with birds, because birds don't just chew the food and then give it to their babies. They actually vomit it. So,
It's Alicia Silverstone. Lean in further. Lead in. Go the full bird route. Go far.
Well, and if we want to talk about bird parents sometime, that is a very fun subject as well. We can get into that in just a little while. I'll tell you about seagulls. This doesn't have to do with sex, but it does have to do with chicks, with babies. So it kind of fits in. But one thing I'm going to say straight off the bat, because this is something, and it's patriarchal in a way that I think the pushers of patriarchy don't quite realize. because in many cases, well, patriarchy usually is based on some founding myth or other. It's like, Eve ate the apple, therefore men should be in charge, this kind of thing, where there's sort of a creation myth buried in there somewhere that
Yeah.
has some morals and it has some other things attached to it, which kind of gives a little bit of an excuse for whatever system of dominance the society has. So there's nearly always some sort of founding myths like that. And what folks like Jordan Peterson are doing is that they are substituting a
Okay,
founding substituting
I
a
like it.
founding myth from the Bible or from some holy book, or maybe just some kind of oral mythology. They are substituting nature for that.
Yeah.
And they are simply saying, so if we look at nature, and again, just like with those holy books, my very carefully cherry picked example from nature, ignoring all others,
Yep.
shows that this is why we should have patriarchy, or why we should have whatever the whatever the people are trying to push or found or make people do. But the thing to keep in mind here is that nature is actually a really poor source of morality. That's really not where
Yeah.
you want to go for your morality anyway. I mean, you can find wonderful, lovely examples of love and kindness in nature, but you can find everything else. We've been talking about fun things having to do with sex in the animal kingdom. But, if you ever want to get into the immorality of parasites and things like that, they are natural too.
Yeah. It's there.
But
Every
you
last.
really don't want to be basing your society's morals on what you find in nature, because you can find anything in nature. So as I said, it's just like, it's a bad idea to begin with to even try doing that. It's better to try and figure out your moral code by thinking about what might actually work and what might actually benefit people. And, people usually come up, when they're forced to do that, they usually come up with something like the golden rule. Though occasionally they will come up with the perverse version of that, which is more like whoever has the gold makes the rules, which is what we have now. And what we're trying to get rid of, quick plug for the election.
We can move into that if you want, because I feel like every single one of these should touch briefly on the election.
Well, would you like to hear about seagulls as parents first?
Oh yeah. There was a question about the seagulls or the lesbian seagulls on the island. So.
Well, no, those are lesbian albatrosses.
Oh, gotcha.
Can't tell you much about the lesbian albatrosses other than that they raise chicks together.
But yes, we'd like to hear about.
But
sure.
There was some wonderful, wonderful research that was done quite a while ago, like, in the 1940s and 1950s, that was looking at seagulls. And of course, seagulls famously will, bring food to their babies. They nest on rocks, and there will be these little baby seagulls sitting in nests on rocks. And the parent seagull comes back from the ocean and starts feeding the various babies. And the little babies, stretch their necks up and they open their mouths and they wait to have it stuffed with food. And then the parent stuffs the food in, and this kind of thing. And people say, oh, isn't that sweet? The parent is feeding the babies. It turns out that's not really necessarily what the seagull is thinking, if you can think about a seagull thinking, because it turns out, first of all, that what the seagull parent is responding to is not the baby or its open mouth, but the fact that when it reaches its head up, there is a patch of white on its throat that gets exposed. And so basically the parent seagull will stuff food into anything that displays that patch of white. So I'm not joking. Scientists.
Wow. Just carry on. Sorry.
We did that experiment. Yes, we did. We took a test tube and put it in the seagull nest, and we taped a white patch to it. And the parent stuffed the test tube full of food to the point where the tube was overflowing and the food was
God.
spilling out all over the place. But they kept stuffing that tube because it had that white patch on it.
Oh my God. That's crazy and amazing. I just like that's it, it reminds it reminds me of the just wow. Holy crap. That's a
Well, it
that's
turns
how
out
they evolved to learn to keep their chicks alive. Just wow.
it's really simple. Well, and it goes the other way as well with this particular species of seagulls. These were herring gulls. Anyway, the herring gulls, the parent herring gull has a red dot near the end of its beak. And it turns out that likewise, the babies were not, in fact, recognizing the parent and begging for food from the parent. They were reaching out to the red dot. And you could get the babies to ignore their parents by producing a bigger red dot in competition with the parental red dot. And they would peck at that instead, even when they were hungry, because they didn't understand that a red dot was not the same thing as a parent seagull.
Oh my God. Wow. It's just whenever you hear someone being like it's who's so into nature and they're like, I think the creatures know more than us. Just bring up, be like, dude, the seagull would starve if you showed it a big enough dot.
Yeah, yeah.
Just point out, no. When you figure out what nature's thinking, it's not that smart after all. I know it sounds like a douchebag thing to say, but I always go back to we're the only creatures that made an iPhone.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a fair amount of intelligence and communication and all kinds of stuff out there, but there's also just a whole lot of, well, what we used to call fixed action patterns. It's like they do that because they do that. I mean, it's kind of the same reason that we eat too much sugar. You know, it's like, it tastes really good. Why?
Yeah.
Because, or salt. Why? Because in the natural world, it's hard to find, and we need those calories and we need that salt. In the post-industrial society, there's all the sugar we need and more than is good for us. Same with salt. Guess what? We still like sugar and salt.
Our body is still telling us this is the last sugar and salt you're going to find for years.
Ever. Right. Get it
while you can. You're saving up for the long winter in which there will be none of it.
Right.
You don't live in a time of famine though, so it's staying around forever.
Right.
Oh, it's your silly, silly body. So it's so. Anyways, it's me stutter purdy today. I wanted to ask you before flipping into the election. I wanted to ask because you've gone to the State House in Massachusetts a couple times and argued to keep religion out of education in the state. Would you like to talk about that a little bit?
Okay. Yeah. In Massachusetts, I actually had a bill submitted, H.471. And the idea there is that all of the science in public schools that is taught in Massachusetts should be based on peer-reviewed science. I would probably amend that.
Doesn't seem like it should be a problem.
And in Massachusetts, it isn't. No, I mean, I wish to make sure that everyone understands I am not dissing Massachusetts school teachers here. Because by and large, science education in Massachusetts is very good. You know, we're up there with Singapore. You know, if Massachusetts were a country, we'd be fairly high up the world charts.
Massachusetts was one of 2 states in the 2016 election that every county went for Hillary Clinton. The only other state that did that was Hawaii.
Oh, that's interesting, but not too surprising. Right. Yeah. And anyway, I mean, and yes, we do have some creationists and people who say, oh, teach both sides. Why not? You know, because it sounds so tolerant to teach rubbish alongside science. But I think it's a bad idea. I also think, frankly, it is a social justice issue. If you have people in public schools, I've taught community college, and I've seen how students who, for instance, want to go into healthcare They're trying to enter a middle-class career. You can find lots of them in healthcare. On the other hand, if they have, mediocre science backgrounds, it's a much, much harder thing for them to do. They really struggle with it. But now imagine, and I have actually met people like this in various, skeptical conferences and the like, who don't just have, inadequate science backgrounds, of what they were taught in school, but they have actively bad science backgrounds from what they were taught in school. So these are the folks who don't just have to learn what they should have learned in junior high and high school while taking a college course. They have to unlearn the BS that they were taught in junior high and high school and learn the stuff they should have learned and keep up with the college course. And very often they don't make it. So it really is a social justice issue as well as being good science and everything else.
We're putting these kids at such a disadvantage by not just teaching the science as opposed to teaching the science plus Mike Pence's version of science.
Plus Mike Pence's version, or if you are in private schools, only Mike Pence's version of science.
To be fair, I went to a Catholic school, kindergarten through 8th grade, and we didn't teach creationism, surprisingly. So that was, they were pretty good about keeping, I'm sure in religion classes they taught, world created in 8 days, but they really did teach evolution of there. But it wasn't an evangelical Christian school. Like there's a big split. Like Catholics seem to somehow go with science a little bit more than the evangelical Christians.
Well, they learned their lesson with Galileo, I think.
Yeah.
And to be fair, the Catholic Church accepted evolution many popes ago. It's not just the most recent one. He has kind of reiterated that acceptance because I think there were a fair number of Catholics that were not actually aware of that. But in fact, the Catholic Church accepted evolution quite a long time ago. But getting back to H.471, the idea is that only peer-reviewed, and at this point I would want to add, empirically based science be taught in Massachusetts public schools. And this is mostly so that everybody gets to be protected. If a student winds up with a teacher who decides to go rogue and teach other things, there will be a law to turn to. If a teacher is under pressure from parents, if anybody is under pressure from the school board, there would be a law to turn to, which I think is handy. And the other thing that it does, of course, is that it provides sample legislation for other states to follow, particularly if you can get something passed in one state. This is actually something where I'm taking a leaf out of the Fundies playbook. This is how the Fundies have gotten alternatives to evolution being accepted in Louisiana and Tennessee, is that there are various, conservative religious think tanks where one of the things they do is they have lawyers on the payroll who come up with sample legislation. So it'll be right on their website. Here's the legislation language that we think will work, that our lawyers say will pass muster. Here, use this. And if there is some state legislator who wants to try and work with this, they will send lawyers down to really try and craft the legislation so that it will get past the state house. And once it is passed in one state, then that legislation is then used as an example for other states. Well, I mean, I don't have a big think tank behind me crafting the language for my little law. But the general concept is the same, which is that if we can get it passed in Massachusetts, then it can be used as sample legislation for other states to follow. Nice. And the way I look at it is it's like same-sex marriage, which also was legalized first in Massachusetts. To be fair, that was done through the courts.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it was passed in Massachusetts, and it was like a bomb going off.
Oh yeah, I think I was in college during when it was passed. So it was like I'd just gotten out of the nest, and I was there, and the energy was wonderful. Mm-hmm. We were all bragging about being the first in the nation. So
that's cool.
It was nice. It was fun.
So, as I said, same-sex marriage was passed in Massachusetts first, um, because it was, more likely to pass in Massachusetts. So it was a good place to try. Um, and, as you know, there was a couple who basically took it through the courts and did everything they had to do. But the point is, it was like a bomb went off, and for a long time, no other state dared to follow suit. And then eventually it was like another one sort of crept
Yeah.
into the fold, and then another one, and it crept and it crept and it crept, and then suddenly it snowballed. And then the next thing we knew, it was actually the law of the land at a federal level.
Yeah.
So these things can happen, but they have to start
Yeah.
somewhere, is what it
Yeah.
comes down to.
Just
And this is
it starts with a small group of very dedicated activists.
right.
Yeah.
And you start with one state and you build from there. And this is something that the conservatives have learned, and I am all for using other people's playbooks. You know,
If
I,
only
I
if only the current administration had that same philosophy when it came to pandemics. Just
yeah,
sorry.
that'd be nice, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a thing. But I'm so glad you've taken up this mantle. Now, how far along is this? Like, where is the bill right now in the process of getting? How's it going? I don't know how.
Well, it's just sitting there right now is what it comes down to. It's not doing much of anything. The legislator who proposed it, who is somebody I've worked with on this, what he keeps hoping is that there will be kind of an omnibus education bill where it can just be added to a bill that, everybody talks through and it's going to pass, and you have this just be a part of it. And that is the strategy that he wishes to try. And the other thing is, which is very sad, is that apparently the strategizing in the State House in Massachusetts is such that they kind of go bit by bit for the scary legislation. So it's kind of sad that science-based science education is considered scary legislation. But basically, they will only kind of do bit by bit of scary legislation. Other legislators I know kind of say, oh, it's kind of better to do sort of one great big package of scary legislation and let all the nutcases come to the State House and have demonstrations on the Common and get it all over with. We're going to get the flack anyway. Why not get it over with all at once? But that's not the strategy that is being pursued at present regarding this bill. So, we'll see what happens. And basically, we just kind of have to keep reminding them that we really, really would like to have this passed. So
eventually it'll get there.
That's what we hope. But it really does require people continuing to push for it.
It's fingers crossed. A quick side note to everyone who's watching on Facebook, because most of the audience is generally on Facebook or YouTube. There are a couple of commenters over on Periscope who are, it's always fucking Periscope, man. Somebody just called Democrats demo rats. Oh, look at you. You're clever. And earlier somebody said evolution is a theory. You're clever, sir. So is gravity. Anyways, just wanted to quickly throw that down, because like I said, it's always goddamn Periscope. Occasionally there's somebody coming in and being like Bob's and Vagine from YouTube, but like mostly like there are different breeds of troll coming in from different platforms. Over on Twitter, it tends to be people who are like Trump. They're the MAGA-ers, or the over on Twitter, and it's people who are like, boobs. Are you wearing underwear? Over on YouTube. It's very, and over on Facebook, it's my cushy little bubble, and I had to break that bubble eventually. Anyway, so we got a few minutes. I figure wrap this up around. It's getting late over there. Kind of wrap it up around the half hour. It's the half hour mark over here. Let's talk the election. How terrified are you right now?
Oh dear. Well, as you in fact said earlier today, more terrified given the Supreme Court at this point.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I'm going to propose something right here.
Oh,
Um, let's say that the Democrats take back the Senate as
yeah,
well as taking the House.
yeah.
Let's say that that happens. I say one of the first pieces of legislation to come out of that should be a brand new Reproductive Rights Act, like the old Voting Rights Act. Do you remember the Voting Rights Act back when it meant something?
Oh yeah, before the Supreme Court before this Supreme Court that didn't have ACB audit destroyed it a couple of years ago. Yes, I do remember that. Mm.
Right. Okay. The old Voting Rights Act basically came out of the civil rights era because what a lot of states tried to do, as they are in fact doing now, is basically suppress the black vote by making it really, really hard for blacks to vote
Yeah.
in various different ways. Poll taxes, literacy tests. The thing they would do is it was like playing whack-a-mole.
Oh yeah.
These states would come up with weird restrictions, and these would then be sent to somebody would challenge them. They would be sent to the courts, often go to the Supreme Court or whatever. It would be legislated that was unconstitutional. But on the other hand, the law had been on the books for a few years. And while that was being legislated, they came up with another 3 ways to suppress the minority vote in the meantime. And so these states just kept coming up with new ways and new ways and new ways, and the legal system couldn't keep up with it. So Congress passed the Voting Rights Act, which basically said, all you states that have been bad actors this way in the past, guess what? If you want to change your voting laws, you actually have to run it by the federal Congress first. So that we already know you have a bad record this way. So, you cannot do those laws unless we say it's okay.
And then gutting the Voting Rights Act basically said, don't worry, it seems like everything's fine. And
Right.
then they
You guys
put in
haven't broken the rules in years now
we're gonna
because
roll.
Congress wouldn't let you.
It's kind of like undoing the lockdowns because no one's getting sick, or there are fewer
Yeah.
people getting sick, and then it's like, it seems like we don't need the lockdowns. Get rid of the lockdowns. All of a sudden, people are getting sick for some reason.
Yeah. But the point is, regarding the Reproductive Rights Act, there are certain states that keep restricting abortion access in ever more creative and weird ways. And very often those ways are struck down in court when they are challenged. But in the meantime, it just winds up being this ongoing case of whack-a-mole. And so we should have a Reproductive Rights Act that basically says, okay, all you states that have been bad actors on this, from now on, you need to clear your new abortion laws with the U.S. Congress.
Yeah. And I feel like that's never going to happen. I'm terrified. Like, I feel like nobody is willing to get out and say abortions is a right that we should have. Like, a right to bodily autonomy is just a thing we should all have. And I don't think anybody is going to stand up for that is the worrisome thing. I'm in the process of scheduling a tube of litigation because I'm so terrified. Like, I'm just not screwing around with this. Like, what if they come for birth control next? What if they come for I have friends who are buying a 12-pack of the morning after pill on Amazon.
Good.
Just in case.
No, because frankly, what they are afraid of is women who have sex for pleasure. That's what actually terrifies them. Abortion is just code for that. But let's get back to nature here, because I can weave this right back around to nature, because abortion happens in the animal kingdom all the time.
Oh, on purposeful abortion? Or are you talking about the fact that our bodies tell.
I'm not just talking about miscarriages where people may actually want a pregnancy and it goes awry because the female reproductive system is not all that great at what it does. Again, marginally adequate is the byword in evolution. But female mice, it turns out, if a female mouse is pregnant and she so much as smells a strange male, she will spontaneously abort the litter. And this is not just
Wow.
limited to mice. I'm just using that as an example because it was discovered there. And get ready to be jealous of mice. If the litter is not too far along in gestation, the female can reabsorb the litter.
That's like a superpower. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So the point is, again, getting back to nature, it happens in nature. Abortion happens in nature pretty frequently, often because of changed circumstances, kind of like when people want abortions because they don't have a job and they think it would be a bad idea to try and raise a baby without an income, for example.
Yeah. It's
So, as I said, it is not that unusual for perfectly natural abortions to take place in nature, including, as I said, simply because of changed circumstances like smelling, I repeat, smelling a strange male.
I believe there are instructions in the Bible on how to perform an abortion in certain situations. Like, I'm just saying there are no instructions in the Bible to not get an abortion, but there are instructions on how to within certain situations. So I'm just saying that's all the Bible says about abortion.
Right.
So
Sometimes it's a bad idea. Sometimes it's a good idea is more or less my understanding of what the Bible says.
Yep. Somebody over on it's always fucking Periscope, man. Someone over in Periscope just said abortion is murder. Murder is a legal term. And legally it's not murder. So ergo, not murder. I'm just like, I'm going to disagree with you, sir. Sorry. That's just I guess if you outlaw it, and here's a thing that I never get a good answer from someone who's pro-life. What do you do about miscarriages that are later term? What do you do about pregnancies that late term need to be terminated due to fatal deformities? And no matter what, there's like, oh, there'll be an no, women who are in that state who have a pregnancy that needs to be terminated late have issues getting that termination in states where abortion past 12 weeks is outlawed. They have major issues, even if just the hospital they're at won't perform it. So no, there aren't. When you make it so that there aren't exceptions, there aren't exceptions, and women are going to die. And that's, I think, a thing that nobody understands when they say just outlaw. We need to get rid of the elective ones. People will stop having sex. People aren't going to stop having sex.
They're not going to stop having abortions either.
No.
The number of abortions stays pretty much constant, whether they are legal or illegal. The difference is how often women die from them. And there was that case in Ireland quite a few years ago where there was a female tourist who was having a miscarriage in Ireland. She was rushed to the hospital, and the doctors would not abort because it was Ireland at the time. Yeah. It was Ireland with the laws it had at the time. And the woman died in Ireland. She died because the Irish doctors would not perform an abortion even when she was dying of having a septic pregnancy.
And that was part of what kicked them off on overturning that law, right? It was final. Right. It was like the last. I love that a woman had to die for them to finally overturn.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this administration has already shown they're fine with people dying as long as they get their way. So we're coming up on an hour and a half. I just want to implore you guys. I know it's a lot of you have probably already voted early. You've gone out. It's like right now, if you have not if you are living in a state that does not have drop boxes, don't mail your ballots anymore, because we're not sure if the Supreme Court is, and this is why I'm having one of these every day. I just want to make sure to remind people about all these things. It's if you get all your news from me, number one, don't. But number two, little reminders. Number one, if you have not mailed your mail-in ballot yet, put it in a drop box. If you don't have drop boxes in your area, go turn it in at the town clerk's office, please go look online for where a drop box is for your area. Also, please go and check out where your polling place is. Going in right now, because they're talking about in certain states, Kavanaugh just said that there's a precedent, I guess. I'm pretty sure that he's coming to the exact wrong legal conclusion on this. But Kavanaugh came out and said that there is precedent for not counting ballots after Election Day, which is wrong. Nor that's
BS, but
it's complete legal fuckery. Like there is nothing like that's voting day, not end of vote counting day. But it's terrifying. They have a 6-3 majority. It's bad. It's really bad. The more people that go out and vote and like put on a KN95 if you can get your hands on one. If you're in an area where look, if you desperately need a KN95, email me and I'll send you one. I will fucking send you one. I have some here. Anyways, but if you're of a condition where you're like, I can't go, I won't do it. I'm high risk. I'll send you a KN95. Please, you need to vote. But anyways, yeah, that's where we are right now. That sending your ballot is terrifying this close to it because they're, not going to count anything that comes late. Anyways, but it's polling looks great. It's just we live in a hellscape. So please, the more votes that go in up and down ballot, the better and the less of a hellscape this might be. And one of the good things is I just, I'm keeping an eye on the stats or the polls. Even if Biden loses half the states, half of the swing states, he is still the floor, the absolute lowest votes the lowest of electoral votes he's going to get are much higher than Trump. So it would be surprising if the Supreme Court even gets called into this, but also we live in a hellscape and I'm terrified. So anyways, go out and vote. Please drop off your votes at a drop box if you can find it within the next few days. But if it gets to within 4 days of the thing, just go vote in person if you can, please, 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 and get a friend to vote. As I always beg you, because things like your bill, things like getting science taught in schools, things like LGBTQIA rights that we need, because remember, these people exist. They have a right to exist. And of course, their existence is science-based, as I want to keep driving home. These are all things that we need to keep in mind. So please vote with your heart, vote with your conscience, and please vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Anyways, thank you so much for coming out and hanging out with me, Abby. I can't say it enough. Your talk was just it was a thing that helped me a lot in my life, and I could listen to you lecture all day. And I want to be one of your students. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
Okay, well, my website is still unfortunately a work in progress. But
so is mine.
Yours is less of a work in progress than mine is. But if you simply type into Google the name Abby Hafer, and then type in various titles. Unintelligent design is one of my evolution talks that has to do with testicles. Another of my evolution talks is called Animals That Shouldn't Exist According to Intelligent Design, but do anyway. And then there's the one that Yvette heard recently, and that is called Everything You Know About Sex Is Wrong, Part 1, The Gender Binary.
There's a part 2. I haven't heard.
There's not a part 2, but the title was so good, but I said, no, I can't just call it Everything You Know About Sex Is Wrong, because there are so many different ways that we get screwed up about sex that the gender binary was really just one of them, but it's the one I started with.
I just want a quick note, because I enjoy dunking on libertarians who are being dickbags over on Periscope. There's a Periscoper, Greg Steele, who I'm sure is a real person, who said, wow, 10 viewers. I bet only 2 or 3 are Biden supporters. Dude, by the end of this, there are like 20,000 views over on Facebook. So sorry that your penis is small. Anyways, just like Ben Shapiro's, who can't make his wife's pussy wet. Anyway, I cannot get through one of these without a Ben Shapiro insult. And I just got that one in. And Greg, go back.
Can I plug my books?
Yes, absolutely. Carry on.
Okay. I have 2 books that I've written. One is called The Not So Intelligent Designer, Why Evolution Explains the Human Body and Intelligent Design Does Not. That one also features testicles, though it also features lots of other things.
Nice.
I teach human anatomy and physiology. I can tell you a lot about what's wrong with the human body. And then my other book is called Darwin's Apostles. That was co-written with David Orenstein, who's an anthropologist over at the City University of New York. And that is basically about the scientists who clubbed together around Charles Darwin to get evolution accepted back in the day. But then it also follows sort of the adventures of evolution as a subject going forward since that time. So anyway, go check out my books. They're fun.
Go check out her books. Go check out her lectures. Like it's if you are not convinced from this, it is hard to get me to shut up, and I managed to be quiet long enough to listen for once in my goddamn life. If that is not enough to convince you guys to go buy a couple of her books, go listen to her other lectures. They're incredible. Anyways, thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I'll see you again on the interwebs. And hopefully, I'm trying to corral a few people for election day. If I can get you to come on for a half an hour of Zen on election night, if you're not busy, crying and drinking over the death of democracy, I would love to have you.
I would love to be there. It'll be tricky. I am going to be a poll watcher in Maine.
Oh, yeah.
Or I should say probably. I haven't gotten an assignment yet, but it might be the kind of thing that it might be fun to actually check in from Maine, if that can be done by way of a smartphone.
We might be able to do that.
But also, I realize that even though I will probably be driving home and it will be late here, it will be earlier where you are. So it might be a possibility as well when I get home.
Yep, we're going to be starting at 4 p.m. Over on my coast, because the first polls start to close at 7 p.m. on the East Coast. So I'm starting when the action starts, and I'm ending either when we know who won or when we know it's going to be a shit show. So I figured that's a good time to, it's like, hey, we're going to go celebrate, or the democracy's over, or democracy might be beginning to end. So I think that's a good time to call it a night on election night.
Well, then all I can say is then send me a link, and I can certainly look to see if you're on when I get home.
Cool. Will
and
do.
We can figure anything else out that we can figure out.
Awesome. Anyways, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I adore you, and I will see you on the interwebs.
Wonderful seeing you.
All right. See you guys soon, or see you guys tomorrow night. Oh, it's if you want to sign off, you can. I just been updating these guys on schedule for the week.
Okay. All righty. Off I go. See you.
Yep. Bye. So guys, the rest of the week so far, everything that we have scheduled, I have, it's somewhat in tomorrow night. We're going to be starting at 9:30 because look, we don't normally do these things. We don't have talks every day of the week. My friend, Maddie D, Matt Donnelly, who's a writer for Penn and Teller, also is one of their co-hosts on their podcast. He is going to be we're going to be doing this at 9:30 tomorrow night, West Coast time. So it's going to be midnight on the East Coast when it starts. So look, we're going to do one late night one. The rest of the week, it's going to be at 5. I have not finished nailing down weekend guests. I'm working on getting Andrew Seidel in here again. I'm trying. But he's also a little stressed and a little tired because he's a lawyer and he's in DC, and shit is hitting the fan over there because of Amy fucking Coney fucking Barrett. Anyways, I'm trying to nail down some guests for this weekend. It's James goddamn Fell is joining me on Monday, and I'm very excited about it. So I've got James Fell for Monday, and Tuesday, like I said, election night, we're just doing half-hour shifts. I'm gonna I'll have the technological capability to have a panel on here as opposed to just one guest. So I'm gonna have at different points like panel-ish things for election night. I'll probably at some point take like a break to bang my head against a wall because it's going to be a lot of hours on election. But like I said, it's just a week of I know that not all of you who are here all the time are going to make it to every night of this, but this is just it's going to be a difficult it's going to be a difficult week for all of us. I am doing this to keep myself distracted and to hang out with you and to, discuss all this shit with with my friends who are willing to do this. Basically, like part of the reason that I'm having Maddie on is because he used to be a little bit more of a libertarian, and it's interesting to see that he's been very, vocal about his support for Joe Biden, and I like seeing that. And the my guest for hold on a second. Oh, I promised possums. My friend Jessica Coleman, you might have seen. Yeah, she is not a public figure. She is a person who everyone shares her public posts, though, and she runs an animal rescue down in Texas. And she provided Mom with her adorable dog Rosie. So we're going to talk animals, and we're going to talk. We're going to talk possums because she has adorable possums. And she also talked me through when I had possums invade my place, and we had a couple that needed to be brought to animal rescue. So we're gonna talk politics and adorable animals. And on Friday, Dan Broadbent from the science enthusiast himself will be joining me at our normally scheduled time. So, like I said, I just have to figure out one more guest. I have an idea. I know who I want to ask. I just need to beg her to give up a weekend day to come join me. But anyways, I'm excited for all of us. It's going to be a good time. We're all going to be going nuts by the end of this. I am going to. Ellen asked what night for possums. I must make that one. It will be Thursday night for possums, and I'm hoping she has so many animals, you guys. I'm hoping that she brings all of them. She has adorable baby turkeys. They seem to. It feels like the cast of animals that she posts pictures of changed according to the day of the week, but she has so many of them. They're adorable, and I want them all here. Anyways, but that was why I asked her, because we all need a break, and who doesn't want baby animals? Anyways, so that's the lineup. I'm still, like I said, still not sure who I'm having for. I know I didn't do a screen lick earlier. I apologize. I just let me get the screen lick before before this is over, because I know some of you come for look. It's you degenerates, you fucking degenerates. I love you all. I hope that extra made it a little bit better. Was that artful? Was that good? Anyways, it's so there's like a beeping noise that has been going on for hours outside my apartment, and my dog, I'm shocked that he's finally sleeping because he's been panicking like crazy. I know there are only 123 of you left, or at least that's what the stats are saying, depending on which platform this is getting it from. But if any of you guys have a cheesecake recipe that you can recommend, please send it to me, because I'm going to make a cheesecake tonight, and I'm terrified because I've never made cheesecake before. Look, I need something to fucking sustain me for the rest of the week. Galen, I think it's Galen, asked for more licks. Need to see tonsil. I don't have tonsils. I do not have tonsils. I had them taken out when I was. There have been no tonsils in this throat since I was 19. Look, I will give you one more lick, but only because it's election week. Only because it's election week. And I'm just gonna say, I really need new contact lenses. Please, somebody throw some money into my PayPal. I've worked very hard for it. I'm doing it for the contact lenses. Anyways, Star said you want sugar-free or no? Not sugar-free. I don't have Oreos, or even gluten-free Oreos, so I can't make an Oreo cheesecake. It's just going to be it's baked. I bought the ingredients to bake a cheesecake, and I bought gluten-free graham crackers to make the crust. So Mercury Vapor said, "Show us your uvula." Oh, now you're just getting invasive with the back of my throat. You're just curious what the beginning of my eventual OnlyFans will look like, and we're not going there. Anyways, I love you guys. Like I said, I really do need new contact lenses, though. So if you can, and if you're of the giving type, it's instead of throwing into my stars, which take 2 months to get into my wallet, if you're capable of throwing it into my PayPal as a thank you for the extra the extra 5 days of entertainment, plus the extra 6 hours of streaming I will be doing on election night, I would really appreciate it. But again, please don't do it if you don't have extra cash kicking around, because we're all struggling right now. Anyways, I love you guys. I will. I will see. It's and if you're not on my Discord server, you want to chat, fucking get on my Discord server. The link is pinned to the top of the Facebook page. Anyways, I love you guys. I will see you tomorrow at 9:30 Pacific time. And if you're, it's yeah, I'll see you guys soon. Bye.